This week on the Game Marks podcast, we play WWF Royal Rumble for the Sega Dreamcast. How does this game from 2000 hold up today? Will we play it forever?
Woo!
Or future endeavor?
You're fired!
Plug in and put on those nostalgia goggles because this week's Game Marks podcast starts now. And now, the Game Marks!
Welcome to the Game Marks podcast. I am the man of 1,001 nicknames, George Feis.
And I'm the man they call Johnny Clash, and today we are playing WWF Royal Rumble for the Sega Dreamcast.
And as always, guys, we love to hear from you. So please leave us a review and a rating on Apple Podcast, and make sure to subscribe and rate wherever you choose to listen. And join in on the conversation on all forms of social media at Game Marks Pod. Johnny boy,
what's up, Georgie? You hear any?
I got a question for you.
Good news
I just wanted to. I was just gonna say, you got any exciting updates? Anything happened? Just like a regular normal week, right?
Just
nothing big happened last week.
Nothing big. Nothing major.
Oh, speaking of Major Fest happened last week. That was kind of cool. Friends over at the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast had themselves quite a banger of a week there.
I guess the cat is out of the bag. Ladies and gentlemen, the Game Marks podcast are so proud to be a part of the brand new Major Pod Network.
So I guess we also have to open up this podcast by saying this podcast is brought to you by the Major Pod Network. So us being a part of the Major Pod Network, one, is great because now we are on the same team as some incredible, already established podcast that everybody already knows and loves. Major Wrestling Figure Podcast, Off the Hop Rope, FWF. But, also there's new content coming out. You have Extreme Conversations with Brian Myers. And then, Johnny, I'm going to let you take the next announcement here. What's the other show?
Spike your hair. The MC True Long Island Story, and I'm still a little upset that I wasn't picked for Broski of the Week back then, but that's okay. We are so happy to be a part of this family. What this means for you guys is just more content. I mean, we're not going anywhere. We're not changing anything. We are still going to be the same old Game Marks podcast. You might just hear an ad or two in the middle of the show, but we are the same old Game Marks podcast, and we are here to bring you guys more content, do more collaborations, and just elevate this podcast as high as we can.
I was just going to say, 100% agreeing with everything that you just said. If anything, this gives you and I the opportunity to produce more content, give more exclusives. This is a launching off point. This is the springboard for us to do even bigger and better things. I don't know, maybe for those of you who might have been there on Wednesday, but we did our live draft for GMP 64. That's one of the new things that we're now able to do thanks to our connections and our hookup within the Major Pod Network. And, there's some rumblings. There may be some new things coming out, but we'll get into that.
No, screw it. You know what? I'm going to say something right now, George. I'm going to release something right now that I didn't even tell you. I'm just saying it right now because we're doing it. We said the last 2 weeks that once we hit 10 shirts on Pro Wrestling Tees, we're releasing a Bret Hart episode. Screw that. We're changing it. We're not putting that behind a paywall. Once we hit 200 followers on Twitch, which we are close to hitting, we're going to release that Bret Hart episode. But here's the thing. We're going to do a video version also and put that on the Major Pod Network YouTube channel.
Oh, see, I like that. I like the evolution.
The evolution
of this. See,
so follow us on Twitch at twitch.tv/GameMarksPod. Let's get to 200.
All right. Well, how about this? Let's do a little follow up from last week. Now that we've rambled on for what seems like 20 minutes.
Good thing for the cut button.
Last week we played Fire Pro Wrestling for the Game Boy Advance, not Advanced. Advance. And what do you think? You sticking with it? You're keeping?
Yeah, I was
playing forever.
Definitely play it forever. One of the most, I can't even say the best wrestling game because, you know, you're unfamiliar with the roster. You want like that Triple H and The Rock and Stone Cold. You have them. They're not the real wrestlers. But I would say it's the most developed Game Boy Advance game created. And yeah, this is an easy play it forever. It has everything you want as a wrestling fan.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I'm absolutely sticking with my rating. Absolutely playing that forever. And yeah, just kind of upset with myself that it took me this long to end up playing that game because I feel like younger George would have really appreciated that. Probably didn't give Fire Pro its fair share in my youth. I had those WWE blinders on.
Same, yeah. Road to WrestleMania. I had attitude for Game Boy Color. I didn't even think of Fire Pro Wrestling. If I saw it in the store, honestly, I'd probably be like, what is this ripoff? And like not even think twice. Yeah,
but hey, you know, speaking of my Game Boy Advanced, however I'm saying it wrong, that was brought to my attention in our exclusive Game Marks Podcast Discord server. You can find that link GameMarksPod.com/Discord or visit our Twitch channel. When you go and hit that follow button, there's also a link to our Discord talking about everything: wrestling, video games, console games, PC games. There's now a new channel where we are going to be talking about GMP64. You can give me and Johnny all of the shit for our draft picks, how we played in that week's episode. It is the one spot that we are going to allow everyone to interact aside from, you know, commenting on the YouTube videos themselves. And in addition to that, speaking of our Twitch channel, the streamer spotlight, we had Elder Spork for the month of January. It was great. He is awesome. Continue to support the Elder Spork, but it is a new month, which means we have a new streamer spotlight. And for those of you who joined us or have joined us in the past on Wednesday nights on our Twitch channel, this week's streamer spotlight is none other than my Warzone dropping buddy, Dom Odinson. So be sure to go and follow him. Twitch.tv/DOMODINSON. He is a DJ. He has nights where he just, you know, hangs out and spins some tracks, and it's like a very nice chill vibe. He drops in Warzone. He plays Rocket League. You know, Army vet, great guy. Love him. I have known him for like 20 years. One of my best friends. Be sure to go and support Dom Odinson. And if you would like to suggest yourself or a friend for the streamer spotlight in the future, let us know. Shoot us a message on any form of social media, and we will be happy to check them out and consider them for the streamer spotlight.
So I wanted to go back to the Discord server for a second, because not only do you interact with us, which is cool, you could interact with Philip Cardigan's in there. Bear Bronson's in there, but he forgot his password. One day he's going to remember his password, and he's going to come back and say something. Liam Davis is in there, even though I don't think he knows what the internet is.
He's still trying to figure out his camera from both our episode where we did the video call and from Major Wrestling Figure Podcast.
Yeah, so you never know who's going to pop in, so join up today.
But Johnny, we've talked so much, and we've talked about all of our exciting news, but there's more than that. There's also gaming news. So why don't you take us through some very exciting gaming news?
What's up, Game Marks Podcast? This is Danny Tancredi, and I'm here with my brother Johnny Tancredi, and together we are the Cult Looking Podcast. Each week we bring to you the latest news and reviews on all things baseball collectibles. From baseball cards and memorabilia to bobbleheads and stadium giveaways, each episode will discuss the newest products to hit the shelves of your local card store and your favorite ballparks around the country. Be sure to be following us on Instagram at the Cult Looking Podcast and on Twitter at CultLookingBB. New episodes drop every Friday, so be sure to tune in wherever great podcasts like this one are available. The Cult Looking Podcast. Don't get caught looking, start collecting.
Following news of a corporate restructure, Konami has clarified that it will not be dissolving its gaming division. In a statement provided to IGN, a Konami representative claims that the restructure could actually help the company respond more quickly to its needs, as one potential obstacle has now been removed. Fans that worried this might have been a final nail in the coffin for Konami's video game department can now rest a bit easier knowing that this could actually prove beneficial. Elon Musk has revealed that the Tesla Plaid Model S will allow passengers to play Cyberpunk 2077 when the vehicle releases next month. That announcement came on Twitter and was preceded by an image that featured a number of additional video games, including Cuphead, The Witcher 3, Wild Hunt, Stardew Valley, and more. The games can be enjoyed by players in the passenger seat as well as the back of the car, which also includes a screen as well. For those looking for a little entertainment on a long road trip, it might be the best way to enjoy Cyberpunk 2077. Now, speaking of Cyberpunk 2077, they just added a feature players have been yearning for since the game released last month. Since release, CD Projekt Red has been busy fixing and improving the game, which released in a very rough state, as you know. As a result, the Polish developer hasn't had the opportunity to expand upon the game. However, last week it did add one long overdue feature, official modding support. Over on the game's official website today, CD Projekt Red announced a news where it provided information on the official tools and resources that will help modders modify and create their own experiences within the game. And that's all the gaming news we have this week. Check back next week.
So, I mean, I feel like we have to make this comparison. When we played, I believe it was King of the Ring for the Game Boy, we had said that how you always had to wait until you were driving under the streetlights to get that perfect light so you could play the game in the car. Could you imagine if you just had the ability to play like Cuphead and Cyberpunk and all of these other games, like just
download it to
in your car? That's insane.
That's got to be a meme, like a kid playing like his Game Boy in the backseat, and then like a kid playing Cyberpunk in a Tesla.
How long until someone cracks that that console in the Tesla and makes it like an emulator and you can play any game on it?
That's probably
How long?
George, have you been keeping up with Virtual Basement's The Wrestling Code this month?
Oh, I mean, they made some fairly big announcements, including who, Johnny?
All right, so they added Dalton Castle, Lance Storm, Velvet Sky, Just Incredible, my arch nemesis, and Francine. So we've always said that
somewhere in the wild, Brian Meyer's ears just perked up.
Just his ears? So we've always said that this game is going to have a crazy roster. It's going to be indie stars. It's going to be stars of the past, stars, people that even wrestle now, like Dalton Castle, Velvet Sky, but
Johnny Clash.
Yeah, okay. But we're just still concerned about, we haven't seen any gameplay. We've only seen character models and people get signed. It's been about a year, I'd say now. I think it's time we see a little bit more than just roster reveals. It's cool that they keep adding these people to the game. It's upping the value. It's upping, people want to see these people in a game. Rob Van Dam's in there. It's gonna be great. I just want to see more.
So I think the thing that I'm most excited about is that there are friends of the show in this game. Bear Country's in this game, and while we have yet to have
Sean Donovan
Boulder on the show, it's gonna happen. We have an episode planned. We just got to get the logistics worked out, because obviously they're kind of busy right now. But I think for me, that's like the coolest thing is that, they're not creator wrestlers. Like, I don't have to go in and make Bear Bronson. I don't have to go in and make Bear Boulder. Yeah. Like, they're in the game. You can just select them from the roster. To me, that's so cool.
Yeah, even Sean Donovan, one of my friends from WrestlePro New Jersey. Hot Dog Starks, who I've put over way too many times in his hot dog suit. It's going to be a fun game. I'm eager. I'm eager to see more.
I'm just waiting for Headband Ken to get signed.
I just don't want it to take as long as Cyberpunk. That's it.
Yes. But I think it is time now, Johnny. What do you think? Should we throw it over to? This is going to be tough, but I think it's time for us to go to the question of the week. What do you say?
Let's do it.
Ooh yeah, Game Marks, huh?
We are here to tell you that the Game Marks podcast is on Pro Wrestling Tees and T Public, but the cream will always rise to the top. Now, there are two ways to shop. ProWrestlingTees.com/GameMarksPod or tpublic.com/user/GameMarksPod, because you know the Game Marks podcast is the cream of the crop, So head on over today and bow down to the kingdom of the madness. Your mustache is crooked, Marks.
So, like we said in the beginning of the show, the Pro Wrestling Tees buy a she-shirt. Buy 10 t-shirts, get a Bret Hart episode is no longer going to happen, but we have something else for you guys. If you buy a t-shirt during the month of February on ProWrestlingTees.com/GameMarksPod, we will personally give you a phone call.
Ooh, that sounds fun. I'm all for that. I think that would be great. But hey, the question of the week. It's a weekly segment. We go back and forth and ask each other a question, and then we like to propose that question to you, and you let us know your answers on all forms of social media at GameMarksPod. Last week, it was Johnny's turn to ask the question, and his question was, you get to pick from any time, any roster, any promotion, the last two people in a Royal Rumble. Who do you pick, and who goes over? And some very interesting answers we got here. I'm going to, from the list that we have, I'm going to let you read the last one because
okay.
I just feel like you need to read that one. So I'll read the first two. On Instagram, collectible_R says Finn Balor eliminating Kenny Omega. And Raw Deal Indie Card says Michaels and Mysterio. Always liked the idea of smaller guys who had the endurance of winning the Rumble by having stamina and smart. So I am assuming that means that he's putting Mysterio over.
Yeah. Now, friend of the pod, TK Wild, says he wants...
Camera 3
says he wants The Fiend and Slade from Creative Pro. Check him out on Cap TV with Slade going over.
Slade is the scariest human I've ever met in my entire life.
Oh, you should have seen him at the Major Pod Toy Drive. He was in charge of telling people they had to leave. So he would literally follow them through the office. It was hilarious.
Yeah, I'm not. My goal is to never be on the bad side of Slade.
But this week,
in
George,
real life, though, nicest fucking guy ever.
But this week, George, it is your turn to ask the question for one last time, because next week, you, the fans, will be asking us the questions. Stay tuned for more information on that. Take it away, Georgie.
All right. So, being that this is the last question that you and I will be asking each other officially in the question of the week, I thought it would be a fun opportunity for us to kind of do like a retrospective. What was your, what's the question that stands out? Like when I say the Game Marks podcast question of the week, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
I think when I laughed at you for asking Justin Leeper what his favorite tag team was, and then it actually sparked a really good conversation about tag teams.
Yeah, that's one of, if not, the most insightful episodes that we've had. For me, though, and you're going to laugh at this, I always think of the question, if you could take two entities and combine them to make a game, and we said that we wanted to make the hockey wrestling game.
Yes.
Like that tabletop hockey game, but into an actual video game. I still really want that. In my bones, I want to take that tabletop hockey game, the WWF tabletop hockey game, and make that into a video game.
An NHL hits with wrestlers.
Yeah.
No,
I still really, really want that.
I'm actually proud of us how our questions started super simple, what would your Survivor Series team be? And then we kind of started incorporating more video game stuff. I think we've come a long way.
But you know what? That's the beauty of the question, though, is that, if it's a certain time of year, during Mania season, the question can be tied into WrestleMania. We're in Rumble season. Last week was the Royal Rumble, or I'm sorry, Sunday was the Royal Rumble. So for you to, ask a Rumble question last week is timely because it's the, You ask a Survivor Series question. It's not like every time like, okay, I know it's March, but what's your Royal Rumble event for next year? What are you picking there? Who pick all 30 participants?
So from this point on Tuesdays, when we usually post the question of the week graphic, we are also going to ask you, the fans, for suggestions for question of the week. If we choose yours, we will send you a Game Marks Podcast sticker pack.
And over the course of the questions of the week, that prize will change. It will evolve. Each week may be something different. Each month may be something different. But there will always be some sort of prize for being chosen for the question of the week.
And as usual, we turn to you, the fans. What question of ours has stuck with you the most? Let us know.
All right now we're about to jump into the hashtag deep dive. But before we do that, quick word from our sponsors. Are you sick of drinking the same old boring coffee with the same old boring flavors? Well, Marks, it's time for you to check out Bones Coffee Company. Bones Coffee isn't just a drink that wakes you up in the morning. It's a full flavor experience. Small batch roasts that are made to order so that every order is guaranteed to be fresh. Unbelievable, all-natural flavors in every single bag. Some of our favorites are blueberry, paradise pie, and chocolate raspberry. But if you're not into the flavored coffees, they've got their single origin series featuring coffee beans from the greatest coffee growing regions in the world. Visit GameMarksPod.com/coffee to place your order and try the world's freshest small batch coffee. All right, Johnny, Bones Coffee, man. What are you having this week?
We can't get enough. I just had my favorite, the gingerbread, but I'm about to place another order. I think I'm going to go with a sampler pack this time so I could try a little bit more.
Oh, see, sampler packs are great. When I first discovered Bones Coffee, that's what I did. We just picked the most outrageous, like insane flavors of coffee. And we're just like, yeah, I mean, they're 5-ounce bags. So if they're, you don't like it, it's not like you bought a big bag and now it's going to waste. Also, I don't think I've ever had a bad flavor.
No.
I'm still rocking that Cookies and Dream. It is just chef kiss. Mwah, just so good.
And like we said, just head on over to GameMarksPod.com/coffee to order yours today. But we are here to talk about WWF Royal Rumble. George, let's hear it.
All right, so like Johnny said, WWF Royal Rumble for the Dreamcast released August 15th, 2000. Now, it's not only for the Sega Dreamcast, it is also in arcade cabinets. Wow, this is so cool. I love when these games go into arcade cabinets, like an entirely different experience for wrestling games. Developed by Sega and Yuke's, published by THQ in the US, Yuke's in Japan. All of the arcade cabinets were published by Sega.
Now, me and my family used to go to this resort. I say resort, you think like a tropical resort. No, it was kind of like an old farty resort upstate, but we kind of just had like the week saved, like a timeshare. We would go with our whole family. It was great. The whole family would meet up there. They would have like bocce and shuffleboard, a few pinball machines here and there, and the claw machines. So one year we go. It had to be obviously in year 2000, and all of a sudden they have this decked out arcade that's brand new. With like the carpet's got like all those little neon, whatever the hell, confetti looking things in them, triangles, and very, very 2000s, 90s ish. And in the corner, Royal Rumble, the arcade cabinet. Now, in 2000, that's like peak wrestling fandom for me. I run to this thing. It had 2 screens on it, so you could play up to 4 people. It was insane. Now, when I tell you I probably spent for the full week, maybe 6 hours a day in just playing Royal Rumble, that's an understatement, because you have to get this game down to a science. Now, we played on the Sega Dreamcast, obviously. On the arcade, it's a lot easier because you have the joystick and the buttons. But it took me a little while to figure out, to get the most out of this game, you had to do the versus mode, not the Royal Rumble mode, because you would go win a match, win a match, win a match, win a match. Royal Rumble, you could be knocked out in seconds, and I would always pick like Jeff Hardy or Edge. You have to go by who the wrestler actually is. So once I started figuring out you had to be like the Big Show or Kane then that's when you start winning. That's when you start having a little bit more fun with it. And the memories, the nostalgia of just seeing this arcade cabinet in pictures now and just remembering running to this with my cousins and playing it. Unfortunately, I think this was one of the last times I went to that resort, so I don't know if I ever got to experience it again after this, but me and this arcade cabinet spent a beautiful week together.
That's awesome.
With Deer Hunter and Ninja Turtles and all that.
So this week, playing this game was actually my first experience playing this. So I don't have any connection to this game because unfortunately I didn't own a Dreamcast till much, much later in the, and I hadn't gone back and played everything. So the game library, once I did get one, was not expansive. It was mostly just like Phantasy Star and Crazy Taxi and Soul Calibur. So Crazy Taxi. But back to the game. Yuke's, creator of WWF SmackDown. What a series, right? Unbelievable. Also developed this game.
And you could tell.
I would say you load in this game, you look at this game, it literally is the first thing that I said. Like, oh, so this is just SmackDown for the Dreamcast. But now the main difference here is there's support for 9 wrestlers on the screen at the same time. 9.
I think that's what I remember most vividly, like playing the Royal Rumble mode, and usually it's like 4 wrestlers at a time, 6 maybe if you're lucky, 9 at a time.
Yeah, and this arcade cabinet was nuts because that dual screen setup, 2 wrestlers on one screen, 2 wrestlers on another screen, and then all the AI, that's nuts. That's so cool. Very innovative, I guess, because usually you just get those crazy widescreen monitors that, maybe you get like blind spots and stuff. 2 monitors in an arcade cabinet.
Too.
So
This thing
cool.
was gigantic and it screams WWF. Like this thing, it wasn't just like a vinyl package over an arcade cabinet. This was a custom built dual screen Royal Rumble, WWF logos everywhere. The front, like the face of the arcade cabinet didn't just, it wasn't just flat. It had like the texture with like the little vents on it and the logos. It was cool.
That's awesome. Now, that's all for the arcade version. The Dreamcast version, on the other hand, you only had the option for 4 players at the same time. So, a little less, but it's what you would expect. It's more right. It's more expected from that that home console version. But other games that are out around this time, there is Giant Graham 2000, which is All Japan Pro Wrestling 3, and ECW Anarchy Rules.
So a big year for wrestling games as a whole, but that was the competition as far as Dreamcast went. So if you had Dreamcast, so this is what kind of blew my mind. Like, I love this game as an arcade game. Imagine like ordering this or pre-ordering this, going to the store and buying this for Dreamcast, and you pop this in and you're like, what is this game? Which we'll get into like why a little bit later, but as a console game, I'm not sure if this worked.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But in terms of your game types, you've got Exhibition, which is just exactly what you would expect. Player chooses a wrestler, and you just pick what kind of match you want, and it's just singles match. That's it. You can. So this was the thing that kind of threw me for a loop that I wasn't expecting. You select a partner, but your partner is more like a manager, but also there's like
you have to use
like Marvel versus Capcom like partner run-ins, and like you could do like combo moves. Like it was weird. Like you could just hit like A and X or A and B or something like that, and like if you have the Big Show as your partner on the outside, he'll just come in and give you the showstopper. Like, what?
Yeah, let's talk about this for a minute, because when you're on the character select screen, once you select your team of 2, you actually are given kind of like a pack of moves that you have to pick from. There's 3 different sets. So say you pick the one with the finisher, or you pick the one where you get a chair. You kind of have to use this strategically. So once you're in the actual match, as you progress, whatever button combo you press, the guy slides in. Like X-Pac would hit the X Factor, Stone Cold would hit the Stunner, like first thing as soon as you start the match, which was crazy. But
yeah, it's so weird.
If you kind of screw up, Like if, say, there's something in the way of the wrestler, they don't make it in the ring, you just kind of lose that, which is weird. They don't try to get in the ring, it's just gone. And
the AI for the partners outside the ring is not great. Like Johnny just touched on, the collision in terms of like
it's rough.
Both partners potentially being out on the same side of the ring at the same time, and then if you call in your partner and your opponent's partner is in front of them, they won't come in the ring.
Yeah, that I don't know. And then there's actually, which we'll touch on later, a backstage fight scene where your partner sometimes, like George was able to run, his partner would come in and do the move. In one instance, which you'll see in Clash at the Feast, I think I had X-Pac in the corner and there was a shopping cart blocking him, so none of the moves actually worked. I wasn't able to bring him into the ring. Actually, I want to talk about the controls also, because while you have a joystick on the arcade cabinet, which might be easier to move, moving with the console, like controller, in most like SmackDown games or most wrestling games, you're facing your opponent no matter what. This one, if you went left, you were not facing your opponent anymore. You had to actually follow them around the ring and face them to hit a move. It was super weird. It's not ideal, I guess, if you're used to like normal wrestling games, how that works. I definitely see how on a console that's not ideal, where it works a little better on the arcade cabinet because you have the joystick.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing that threw me for a loop the most is, I guess, the running attacks feel like your character either moves at the speed of light or is the slowest thing in the world. Like there's no like middle ground. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot, or it's a lot to process all at once.
I think I get why you don't actually like lock on an opponent, and I think that's for the Royal Rumble match because you have 9 people in the ring. I think you could just kind of like arcade button mash and eliminate whoever's around you.
So speaking of the Royal Rumble, let's talk about that, because that's really like the bread and butter
main feature
of this
here,
game. So you would think that a Royal Rumble game, it's the name of the game, that it would be true to the style of the the annual Royal Rumble event. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So we'll use, we've been playing and talking about No Mercy, so we'll use that as a standard. In that Battle Royal Rumble mode,
survival.
Well, no, survival is the one thing, and then there's also
I know.
the Battle Royal.
I'll cut that.
In that game, in those types of matches, you'll eliminate people. The AI will eliminate people, and that's you don't have to eliminate everybody. In this game, you got to be in it. You have to be super active in eliminating people. You're always, in the match as the person you picked, and there is a 3-minute timer, and you have to not get eliminated or let the timer run out. And, elimination is the same as you would expect. That's good and true. Over the top rope, both feet hitting the floor. And as you eliminate wrestlers, you're battling against the clock. So every time you eliminate someone, it adds 20 seconds to the clock. That screams, give me your quarters in an arcade cabinet.
100%. And I probably gave them about $100 that weekend.
I absolutely believe it.
Now, eliminating a wrestler with the S near their feet, which is their special, will add 40 seconds onto the clock. So you kind of want to gun for those guys as well. And in the arcade version, if you get eliminated or the timer runs out, like George says, you have to insert a credit to continue. But in the Dreamcast version, you could press start, you own the game, that's it, and you could keep going.
We'll get into the roster itself, but a main criticism, I guess, about this game is that playing the Royal Rumble match, you really get a sense for how small the roster is. Because typical Royal Rumble, you get your 30 entrants and that's it. This game only has 19 playable characters on the arcade. And then in the Dreamcast, there's 21, but you're still not hitting that 30 mark.
No, you get a lot of repeats.
Yeah.
Here's Jeff Hardy in red. Here's Jeff Hardy in black.
Yeah.
Here's Kane in reverse colors.
And then obviously, as we touched on before, there could be up to 9 wrestlers in the ring at one time during the Rumble match. But I guess, what's the word? The health bar, the stamina meter, energy meter, whatever you want to call it, is it's strange. It looks the same, but it's also very different. Like, if that makes any sense. Like, you know what it is, but it looks so different than every other game.
Yeah, it's just kind of a different concept where rather than collecting 1 S for special, that won't really do much. You have to collect 3 in order to hit the move. But these games are so quick that, like, by the time you're ready for your special, you could just lose by knockout or win by knockout. These games happen in like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
The cool part is, though, if you have the S saved, you could save yourself from elimination in the Royal Rumble or kick out of the pin. I don't think we knew that when we played.
No. We definitely did. I'm actually surprised that you didn't know that, because you are this week's expert in this game.
I played this 21 years ago in an arcade game.
Yeah, but that's more experience than I had. But I mean, it was an experience. I will say that. But I think it's time for us to break down this roster.
All right, so this roster. Now, the arcade version has 19 playable characters, while the Dreamcast version has 21. So your roster is Al Snow, The Big Show, Chris Jericho, D'Lo Brown, Edge, The Godfather, Jeff Hardy, Kane, Kurt Angle, Mankind, Matt Hardy, Rikishi, The Road Dogg, Jesse James, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Taz, The Rock, Triple H, The Undertaker, and X-Pac. And now the Dreamcast only, you get Vince McMahon by beating the Exhibition mode, and Shane McMahon when you beat the Royal Rumble. So, you know what bothers me here? If you play the opening FMV of this game, or you even look at the back cover where it has the women's title, you see Chyna, you see Lita, you see some women wrestlers. They're just not in this game, though.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
This isn't like a game now where they have their own like different attributes. Women can't wrestle the guys and vice versa. Like, this was the era where Chyna was in SmackDown 2 and beating you in Clash at the Feast as Paul Bearer, Like, this is what we were working with here.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
But this game actually has some cheats, George. We love cheats.
Oh, I love cheat codes.
So if you knock out the ref by hitting him with a weapon twice, if done correctly, a message stating the referee is knocked out will appear. Double team will now light up in different colors. You can now perform double team moves as many times as you want. There's another one here that actually didn't work against you, so I'm not sure how accurate it is. But apparently, if you held down the block button and went every direction on the D-pad over and over again, you would block every move. I did try it. Didn't work.
Wait. I didn't know about this.
Maybe you should do your research before every game.
Wow.
Maybe you should read the notes I have prepared a week early.
Wow. You heard it here first, guys. Heel Johnny, cheating to win.
Now, kind of touched on the character models here. They are very, I would say, even identical to the SmackDown series. You're the same smooth characters that, they look lifelike, but there's just something about them that still has like that polygon look. The crowd is very papery. You only get one entrance here, and it's the Royal Rumble entrance. It's kind of like a circle. It's very old school WWF in this modernized game. It's a little odd, but I get it for an arcade port.
Yeah, and, if you're comparing this to the other games of the time, it's pretty in line with the graphic standards. Maybe they don't hold up perfectly today, but, for some people, this series, this generation of games is their bread and butter. And I know that both of us loved the early SmackDown series of games, so this definitely hits on the notes of that nostalgia.
Right, and like we said before, there's a backstage feature as well, where you have some weapons, like some shopping carts, some chairs. Now, inside the ring, when you hit a move, it's also very arcadey in the sense that it shows like flashes on the screen, like Mortal Kombat style. Like you punch the guy, you get this like giant burst coming out of their body. It's a little weird. Also, you have the meter surrounding your wrestler on the bottom, which shows which player is which. I always hated that. I always turned it off. On the arcade, you could not turn this off.
Yeah, and here's the thing that I'm realizing or remembering now. That energy bar, your stamina bar, that whole little HUD that sits on the top, the clock is huge. The time on that screen is massive. And your move types with your A and B, your B and X, your Y and A, your setup like that, it all takes up so much of the screen that I feel like it is such a large amount of real estate that you actually lose. Like, it's almost distracting.
It is, yeah, especially for an arcade game. That's why in the Royal Rumble mode, you don't have that, and there's just kind of the S underneath the guy. Now, what about this artwork for this game? Because this is very, I would say, recognizable and iconic for a Dreamcast game.
This cover is cool because, we like covers that let you know that it's a wrestling game. And there's no question about this. This is a wrestling game. You have Stone Cold hitting the stunner. You have The Rock pinning. It says WWF Royal Rumble on it. You know exactly what it is. It leaves
cool
nothing to the imagination. Very cool background. It lets you know it's a wrestling game right off the bat. Now, Johnny, why don't you take us through this back cover?
All right, it says brutal, bone-crunching action. No pun intended. Over 20 highly detailed WWF superstars with a partner interference system, 9 superstars in the ring. What's your weapon of choice with Shane McMahon throwing a barrel at Al Snow? Wreak havoc backstage with Kane in his alternate attire. And superstar signature moves. And that has The Rock hitting the smackdown DDT on Stone Cold Steve Austin, I believe on top of a chair. Now it says immerse yourself in the chaos of a Royal Rumble match with up to 9 superstars in the ring at one time. Better watch your back because in this type of match there are no allegiances or friendships. And we have that beautiful Jack's Pacific logo on the back as well. But George, despite all of this, despite this beautiful artwork, this iconic artwork, did you know? Did you know Royal Rumble was the first console wrestling game in the 3D era to break the barrier of having more than 4 wrestlers on screen at the same time?
Did you know? In singles matches, if the match is nearing the time limit, the ring will fade from the background and the wrestlers will be transferred to the backstage area, like a kitchen, a boiler room, or a parking lot.
Did you know this was the Big Show's only video game appearance with the 2000 roster, as he was removed from WWF SmackDown 2 Know Your Role and WWF No Mercy?
Did you know Royal Rumble for the Dreamcast is on eBay for as low as $9.99 for the disc, $60 complete, and $75 for that factory seal.
Now, a little fact about the Big Show: he actually returned at the following year's Royal Rumble. He got a little trip down to Ohio Valley, which was speculated as to be the reason he was not in these 2000s games. Now, Kurt Angle and Taz made their WWF video game debuts in this game before No Mercy and SmackDown 2. So, for perspective, Royal Rumble came out August 15th, SmackDown 2 came out November 21st, and right behind it was No Mercy on November 17th. Now, the funny thing is, Kurt Angle and Taz also wrestled on the Royal Rumble 2000 event, which was Taz's debut. So, George, we mentioned how when the time starts running out, you kind of fade into a backstage area. I didn't tell you this was going to happen, and it happened during our match, and you were kind of like, what the hell? Because the lights go out, spotlights start going off, and all of a sudden the lights come back on, and you're somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I definitely thought the game broke. I thought you may have put in some kind of like cheat code to do something that I didn't know about. I was like, oh no, what's happening?
That was like
don't understand what
Arkham Asylum, where the Joker like breaks the screen and everyone reset their games just to find out that they just lost like so many checkpoints.
Yeah, I don't know why it happened. I don't know how it happened, but it happened. And I was very confused the first time.
So even when we turned off the time limit for one of our matches, it still happened. At a certain time, it still happens. We were lucky enough to see the parking lot, I believe, only. I don't think we got into the kitchen or the boiler room. We just kept getting the parking lot over and over again. But the funny thing is, you still have the Royal Rumble entrance there. It's just the ring and the ring area, the crowd is now just a parking lot.
Yeah, I don't know. Just strange.
It's strange. I think it tensed you up a little bit. It made you a little sore, right? It's
just, these surprises that games just throw at you, especially when like you don't know, I just get real tense. So I think I need some R&R, John. I think you need to take me through some ratings and reviews.
All right. So Metacritic gives this game a 66 out of 100. All Game with a 2 out of 5 stars. CVG with a 7 out of 10, EGM with a 5 out of 10, Famitsu with a 30 out of 40, Game Fan with an 87%, Game Pro with a 3.5 out of 5 stars, Game Spot with a 6.5 out of 10, Game Spy with a 4 out of 10, IGN with a 5.2 out of 10, Next Generation with a 3 out of 5, and Maxim with an 8 out of 10. So very mediocre. There are some good reviews peppered in here for the Dreamcast version, but overall, middle of the road, not everyone's favorite game. I think the lack of wrestlers in the game was the main criticism, plus it's just an arcade game ported for a Dreamcast.
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable if you had the option to go and, you have a PlayStation, you have a Dreamcast. I mean, a lot of times you kind of want. And the argument can be made, but I feel like for the most part, you kind of want that original IP, that original, like you want to have your own game for that console, something that's different, that separates us. And you kind of got it, but it wasn't perfect. So I understand the critique here.
Yeah. And speaking of, I guess I could say former tag team partner, Liam Davis was also, I'll say a very big fan of this game growing up. We have a little clip that he sent us in you could check out right here.
Royal Rumble for the Sega Dreamcast is one of the single worst wrestling video games ever made. There's a grand total of 2 whole modes, really spoiled us there, 2, Exhibition and, shocker, Royal Rumble. I would certainly hope that's in there. You are forced to have a partner every time, and anytime you try to have a pin, get a submission, the opponent's partner gets involved. These matches never end. It is just god-awful. It has these obnoxious sound effects. It has these stupid visuals of smacking every time you punch someone. It is just one of the worst things ever made on a criminally underrated system. Terrible.
All right, but with all that, George, with the ratings and reviews, it's time for the most important rating of them all. Because right now, it's time to rate the games.
The game!
All right, Johnny Clash, WWF Royal Rumble for the Dreamcast. Will you play it forever?
Woo!
Or future endeavor?
You're fired!
So I want to be like you this week and say future endeavor, the Dreamcast, play it forever, the arcade cabinet, but I know I am always a stickler and tell you have to pick one or the other. I'm trying to see which one outweighs the other. I gotta say, I did kind of have fun playing this just to see kind of how bad it is on the Dreamcast. So as much as I want to say future endeavor, I'm going to have to play it forever right here.
Woo!
Oh, okay.
Okay. The arcade version's really outweighing the Dreamcast right now. That's my only reason. I have so many good memories of this, and if that arcade cabinet was in front of me today in an arcade somewhere, I would be playing it the same amount. Now, George,
all right.
Your first experience with this game, would you play it forever or future endeavor?
See, I'm torn with you as well, because I feel like I like this game, and it feels like an arcade game, and that's cool to me. But I did not like it on the Dreamcast. I just feel like it's more suitable for the arcade cabinet. So you said you're going to play it forever?
I'll play it forever.
I almost think I agree with you. Like, I have no experience and no ties to the arcade cabinet, but I feel like if I had the arcade cabinet, I would have played this all the time. Like, I definitely remember seeing this in, Dave & Buster's, local arcades as a kid. So I think I'm going to agree with you. I'm inclined to agree with you here. I think I'm also going to play it forever.
Woo!
Okay, cool. All right, so actually, before we move on here, I was just researching. I found it on primetimeamusements.com. They actually have a write-up on this game with all of the factory kind of selling points here. There's a PDF here that I'm assuming they sent to distributors where it has The Rock and Stone Cold big. It says, "Do you smell what The Rock is cooking?" That's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so. Here's the thing. It says actual screen images. You have a cage match. You have tag team matches. You have the 9 guys in the ring. This game looks so cool in this PDF here. And then the back, you have all the roster with the arcade cabinet itself. Let the Rumble begin with the SmackDown set on the bottom with The Rock standing in it. Now, we know that is not in the game here. And here's some facts. This was the last wrestling game to be released to the Western market. I said this cabinet was huge. This monitor is 29 inches.
Wow.
And obviously, this is no longer in production since it was released in 2000, so they do not have any options to buy one on this website. I would be interested to find out. I would actually really love to find out how much one of these goes for today.
It's now time for my favorite part of every episode, because it's time for Clash at the Feast.
All right, to see this week's episode of Clash at the Feast, head on over to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/GameMarksPodcast. Last week, we played Fire Pro Wrestling for the Game Boy Advance. We were not able to do a Clash at the Feast, so me and George did our GMP 64 draft on Wednesday night, which you could also check out on our YouTube channel. And we said we were going to take both of our number 1 picks and go head-to-head in No Mercy to decide on January's fate. George was already up 2-1. If I won, we would have to push it to another game. So, Eddie versus Taker. George takes the first game. We quickly press rematch. Johnny takes the second game. Now the third game. You smell that? It smells like collusion. George turns interference off since Dean Malenko kept coming out on my behalf. He already had China out there, and George takes the third game to win and go up 5-1 on the year.
All right. Hold on here. Now, here's the thing about No Mercy.
I smell collusion.
Here's the thing about No Mercy. Managers don't get involved in the match unless there's interference. So, Eddie Guerrero comes out with China. China doesn't do anything unless interference is on. So I figured, let's just do it for the pure gameplay. It's pure Johnny versus pure George. There's no chance for, but you had this and you had that. It's just how Johnny played versus how George played. And you went out of your way. Watch it in the video. You hit China with the steel stairs. You throw a water bottle at her. You go outside and you give her a big Yakuza kick. Like, you go out of your way to hurt her. She didn't even do anything to you until Dean Malenko comes out.
I'm just saying, have you ever heard of the butterfly effect? One flutter of a butterfly's wing can change the whole outcome. That Dean Malenko interference that we saw in both matches, it could have had such an effect on the third match. But regardless, George, you won January. We're looking now forward to February. Play his goddamn music.
All right. Now, Johnny, next week on the podcast, new game, new week, new network, right? Very exciting. But we're going back to an old favorite here.
Uh-oh.
We are paying a little visit to our good friend, Kaniku Man.
Yes!
Because next week on the podcast, we are going all the way back to the original NES when we play Tag Team Match Muscle.
Yes. Give me this series. Inject this series into my veins. I am excited now.
All right. Is that it? You got anything else you want to say?
I mean, yeah. So check out GMP64. Check out the draft. That's the start of it on our YouTube channel. If you want to learn more about GMP64 and what it is, if you're new to our podcast, all of it's laid out on GameMarksPod.com/GMP64. And we just thank all of our new listeners. Thank you for joining us if you're new to this podcast. If you want to go back and listen, I suggest starting at the more recent episodes, then going back so you could see how much we evolved over time. We appreciate you. We love you. Good night, New York.
Again, touching back on Johnny's point about GMP 64, if you're listening to this on release day, it is currently Monday. This Thursday, the first official episode of GMP 64 is released. It's the first episode. It is the thing that Johnny and I have been talking about doing behind the scenes for over a year. We are finally able to figure out everything, put a name to it, get everything working. This is, besides the podcast, this is probably the thing that I'm going to be most proud of that we do, mainly just because it is pushing Johnny and I way outside of our boundaries. We're both graphic designers who dabble in video editing. This is now full on. Both of us are getting into the trenches with video editing. So very exciting, very nervous, very proud to be able to make something like this for you guys. But enough shilling about the GMP 64 series. I'm going to put a bow on it, Johnny. What do you say?
Take us home.
All right. That's going to do it for us this week on the Game Marks podcast. Please check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store at prowrestlingtees.com/GameMarksPod. It is the best way besides listening to support the podcast. And remember, all shirts sold in the month of February will receive a phone call from your humble host, Johnny Clash and George Feis. Also, follow us on all forms of social media at GameMarksPod. Leave us a review and a rating on Apple Podcasts and subscribe wherever great podcasts can be found. Thanks for hanging out with us this week. We love you. Like Johnny said before, old or new, thank you for hanging out with us. Welcome to the Game Marks Pod family. Thank you for welcoming us into the Major Pod Network. Wear your mask, social distance, stay safe, wash your hands. Johnny, say goodbye.
Game over. Marks.
Game Marks Podcast, put them on the radar. Playing rare games, Sega Saturn, no Game Shark. Johnny and George work hard and they play hard. Future endeavor games and put them in the graveyard. From the deep dive to the clash at the feast. How can I get more? That's question of the week. Follow on Twitch, there's nothing that they won't play. Game Marks Podcast every single Monday.